Tonight on the news, state government receives food items as palliative measures for vulnerable from the federal government. Nigerian Army withdraws its officers and men from Okwama community in Uyeli South local government area. Trade Union Congress threatens massive protest if the federal government fails to reverse the controversial cybersecurity levy. And abroad, Zimbabwe's finance minister orders all government agencies to accept payments in the newly introduced gold-backed currency. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on Delta Television News. My name is Pauline Okolie. The state government has taken delivery of 19,500 bags of 50 kilograms of maize and 4,700 bags of 25 kilograms of gari, courtesy of the federal government. The gesture was aimed at cushioning the impact of the current economic downturn, in line with the renewed hope initiatives of the administration. Ejimu Dueme reports.
The Secretary to Delta State Government, Dr. Kingsley Emu, who received the food items on behalf of the government, thanked the federal government for the bold step, pledging that the items would get to the citizens. Dr. Emu noted that Governor Sheriff Buhari had taken proactive steps to ameliorate the plight of Deltans since fuel subsidy was removed by Mr. President on May 29 last year. He listed 5.6 billion naira paid to clear arrears owed civil servants. Over 2,000 teaching and non-teaching staff were employed in schools. Capacity development programs organized for various cadres of workers in the state civil service, and 1 billion naira for artisans, among many other proactive steps. The SSG added that the present administration had constructed roads and bridges in upland and riverine communities, created works to tackle the all-time high inflation and naira devaluation, as well as steps taken to combat insecurity, which had made Delta State a heaven in the area of safety.
So we want to assure you that we will do our very best. And where necessary, and as usual, the government will implement this entire process. Yes, it is a gift from support from government, also spending a lot, as you can see, in terms of logistics. So 500 ports and then 25 local government areas. It's a lot of logistics.
Dr. Emu, who is the chairman of the Palliative Distribution Committee, assured the federal government that the food items will be judiciously shared. Presenting the items, the Director General of the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Mrs. Zubeida Umar, represented by Mr. Brandon Ibarakumo, charged the committee to ensure the items go to the beneficiaries across the 25 local government areas of the state.
It is worthy of note that based on the allocation table, Delta State has been allocated 975 metric tons of maize, which translates to 19,500 bags of 50 kg. 117.5 metric tons of gari, which is 4,700 bags of 25 kg. The above food items will be shared equally to all the LGAs in the state.
Mrs. Umar said the food commodities were sent to the state based on the president's directive that foods be distributed across the country from the National Strategic Reserve under the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Ejime Uduime reporting.
The Nigerian Army has withdrawn its officers and men from Okwama community in the Uyeli South local government area of the state after weeks of occupying the troubled community. Governor Sheriff Buhari disclosed this at a press briefing in Government House, Asaba. Ejimu Dueme reports.
The governor said the withdrawal was as a result of many deliberations and collaborations between the state government and the military leadership. He said with the withdrawal of the Nigerian Army, the people of Okwama can now safely return to their homes and begin the process of integration and rebuilding their homes. While expressing gratitude to President Bola Tinubu, the Chief of Army Staff, and the hierarchy of the Nigerian Army for their understanding and cooperation, the governor also applauded members of the National Assembly, Nigerians, traditional rulers, and other leaders of thought who stood with the state during its travails. He noted that the Nigerian Army demonstrated the highest level of concern and care for the plight of the displaced persons in its engagement with them. Governor Borewori assured veterans and residents of the state that his administration was irrevocably committed to enhancing peace and security as contained in his administration's more agenda.
With this development, the people of Kwama can now safely return to their homes and begin the process of reintegration and rebuilding their homes. Our profound gratitude to Mr. President, the Chief of Army Staff, and the hierarchy of the Nigerian Army for their understanding and cooperation.
He said after a personal assessment of the community on 20th of April 2024, the state government had commenced setting up of an internally displaced persons camp at Iwu to serve as transition to aid their rehabilitation, adding that necessary assistance needed by the people to settle down quickly and joyfully will be rendered by the government. Ejime Uduime reporting.
The state government has warned communities in crisis to desist, live in harmony with their neighbors, and listen to government advice, as the Governor Sheriff Obrewori administration would not tolerate anything that would breach the peace and security of the state. The special advisor to the state governor on peace building and conflict resolution, Chief Edwin Uzo, stated this when he carried out an on-the-spot assessment of the disputed land boundary between Afisere and Oboa communities in Ugeli North local government area. Henry Unogwa reports.
Chief Uzo said the visit was to assess the scene of the lingering land in dispute and for a fact-finding in order to ascertain the facts presented on papers before the state government. He noted that the two communities had lived in peace for decades, saying the position of erected signposts should not stir up disputes between both parties, enjoining them to live in harmony. The special advisor frowned at the rate of assumption by communities, thinking there would be discovery of one natural resources or the other in the land.
The issue now is they're not asking anybody to pack. They're not asking anybody to quit. The issue is that this area belongs to this community. This area belongs to this community. And this area that belongs to this community has been bought by the other community. But the other community is saying that they are the owner of the land. Therefore, their signboard must be there. The other community who bought is saying no, that their signboard will not be there. So we determine that.
Chief Uzo said the committee have noted the cause of dispute on the presumed boundary and would carry out further investigation that would guide it in reaching a decision on the issue, adding that the two communities were brothers. He appealed to Afesere and Obowan communities to live in harmony in order to attract more of government's presence, saying development could only thrive in an atmosphere of peace, and assured the parties to the dispute that the committee would ensure justice in the matter. Henry Onogwa reporting.
The State House of Assembly has screened and confirmed Oluogunloke Omoru and Honorable Anthony Eleke Okure as Chairman and Director General of Delta State Investment Development Agency, Mrs. Roslyn Amioku and Ikechukwu Maduemezie as Chairman and Member of the Civil Service Commission, as well as Okpaka Ikenna as Auditor General Local Government. Favor Okafo reports.
They were screened and confirmed at the Committee of the Whole House in a motion moved by the Majority Leader, Honorable Emeka Nwobi. The Speaker of the House, the Right Honorable Emomotimi Gwon, upon citing errors in the credentials of Mr. Okpaka Ikenna, called for his withdrawal for failure to update it, requesting him to submit the updated version to the Clerk of the House within 24 hours. The Speaker, while congratulating the nominees, charged them to work in line with the vision of the state government's more agenda.
And yet I recommend the nominees for confirmation by this Honorable House.
Separate motions were later moved by the Majority Leader for notice of presentation for first reading for the executive bills sent to the House by the State Governor. The bills include the Delta State Electric Power Sector Bill, the Delta State Task Force Against Human Trafficking and Irregular Migration Bill, the Delta State Pet Control and Registration Ownership Bill, and a bill to amend the Special Offences Court Law. Other bills scaled through first reading were a bill to establish the Delta State Film and Video Censors Board Law, a bill for a law to amend the Delta State Administration of Criminal Justice Law, and a bill for a law to amend the Delta State Administration of Civil Justice Law of 2022. The bills were deferred for second reading on later dates. Favor Kafo reporting.
State government, through the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Community Support Services and Girl Child Development, has called for online application from small business owners in food processing, spice making, juice making, fashion, hair making, catering, ICT, business center and retail outlet for the 2024 More Grant Scheme and the Transforming Nigeria Youth Program for female entrepreneurs. A statement signed by the Director of Public Communication, Mrs. Teresa Oliko, says the More Grant Scheme and the Transforming Nigeria Youth Program are designed for female small business owners within the age bracket of 18 and 35. The statement says participants should be willing and available to participate in the Transforming Nigeria Youth in the training program, which is a prerequisite to accessing the grant, adding that applicants must also have a registered business name and be resident in the state to participate. According to the statement, entrepreneurs who have previously benefited from any state government grant or intervention are not to apply, even as verification and screening will be carried out to ensure that only owners of small businesses who meet the requirements are accepted. Application is free and closes on May 17. As part of measures to alleviate the challenges in transportation faced by communities in the rural areas, a philanthropist and Odogwu of Abala Kingdom in Ndokwa East Local Government Area, Chief Christopher Iwale, has donated pontoon barge with a capacity of 120 tonnage to his community. The pontoon was commissioned at Abala at the river between Oluosisa and Abala Kingdom. The report. President Bola Tinubu returned to Nigeria in the early hours of today after a 2-week official and private visit out of the country. President Tinubu departed Abuja on April 23 en route to the Netherlands on an invitation by the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte for economic and diplomatic meetings. Arrived the presidential wing of the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, at about 1:45 a.m. Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, confirmed the return of the President. While in the Netherlands, President Tinubu held high-level talks with Prime Minister Rutte on a range of issues of mutual interest to the two countries, after which he held separate meetings with King Willem Alexander and Queen Maxima of the Kingdom. He also participated in the Nigerian-Dutch Business and Investment Forum, which brought together heads of conglomerates and organizations in both countries. After his engagement in the Netherlands, the president proceeded to Saudi Arabia, where he attended the Special World Economic Forum meeting in Riyadh, the capital. The forum, with the theme Global Collaboration, Growth and Energy for Development, was attended by leaders from across the board to discuss global development strategies. Although no official statement was issued on further engagements at the end of the summit, sources within the presidency confirmed that he proceeded to London, the United Kingdom, for a private visit. As reactions continue to trail the recently introduced cybersecurity levy introduced by the federal government through the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, the Trade Union Congress, TUC, has threatened a massive protest that will shut down the Nigerian economy should the federal government fail to reverse the controversial levy. TUC President Comrade Festus Osifo, in a strongly worded statement today, slammed the directive by the CBN to banks imposing a 0.5% cybersecurity levy on electronic transactions in the country. The TUC said it was illogical that the development was coming at a time Nigerians were grappling with the high cost of living imposed by the devaluation of the naira, hyper hike in the cost of petrol, and supersonic increments in the cost of electricity tariffs, among other factors. The union said it was disturbed that since the inception of the present administration, government policies had brought pain, anguish, and sorrow to Nigerians. It added that the unfriendly policies of the government were imposing hardships not only on the downtrodden masses, but also on businesses, as many of them were shutting down because of the unfriendly business environment. The TUC was particularly pained that the National Assembly, which ought to be the bastion of democracy and the protector of the citizens, oftentimes engaged in collusion with elements within the executive to exploit the people. It added that the situation was apparently a conspiracy of the oppressors against the masses of the country, stressing that it must be resisted by all well-meaning Nigerians. The statement asserted that what Nigerians were interested in now was the urgent conclusion of discussions around the minimum wage and not a vexatious policy that was further reducing the already depleted disposable income of the masses and indirectly ridiculing the gain that the minimum wage would have brought to the people when concluded. He called on the federal government to give a marching order to the Central Bank of Nigeria to immediately withdraw the circular and cancel the planned levy forthwith, adding that upon government's failure to do so, Labour would be left with no option but to mobilize all its members, stakeholders, and indeed the entire mass system back on an immediate protest that would culminate in the total shutdown of the economy, as the latest policy was one exploitation too many. The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, has invited operators for dialogue over demand for end-user tariff hike for calls, data, and other services. According to reports, the regulator and operators would weigh the options so that it will be a win-win for all stakeholders. Meanwhile, telecom operators have started moves to engage with subscribers to get their buy-in into the new campaign to increase tariff. The move came after the operators met with the Minister of Communications, Innovation and Digital Economy, Mr. Bosun Tijani, in Abuja. Reports said the minister asked the operators to first engage with their customers and get their understanding of the issues involved. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has published an extensive roster of authorized deposit money banks functioning within the nation. The roster disclosed that on the CBN's official website offers a glimpse into the Nigerian banking sector, showing 6 banks with international authorized, 14 commercial banks with national authorization, and 4 commercial banks with regional license. The list also displays 4 banks as players in the non-interest banking sector with national authorization, 6 banks in the merchant banking category, and 7 banks as financial holding companies. The Mauritius Commercial Representative Office Nigeria Limited was listed as the sale representative office. You're watching Delta Television main news. Still to come, Zimbabwe's finance minister orders all government agencies to accept payments in the newly introduced gold-backed currency. Please stay with us. We'll be back. very much for staying on. This is Delta Television News. The global scene is next as we join our World News Desk.
More than 100,000 packets of sliced bread have been recalled in Japan after parts of a black rat's body were discovered inside 2 of them. Food recalls are rare in Japan, a country with famously high standards of sanitation. An investigation are ongoing into how the rodents remained hard-crept in the products. Around 104,000 packs of the bread have been recalled in mainland Japan, from Tokyo to the northern Amori region. They were produced by the bread maker at a factory in Tokyo, whose assembly line has been suspended pending the probe. The company said it was so far unaware of anyone falling sick after eating its processed white bread, a long-time staple at Japanese breakfast tables. Cleanliness and hygiene are taken seriously in Japan. Zimbabwe's Finance Minister Mthuli Nkube has ordered all government agencies to accept payments in the newly introduced gold-backed currency amid reports of acute shortage. Mr. Nkube, in a statement, said the Zimbabwe gold zig introduced last month was now the official unit of exchange for transactions in the country. He said the government would soon introduce regulations to ensure businesses stick to the official rate, which will be freely determined by the banking system based on demand and supply. The currency was introduced in a move to stabilize the country's economy, which has been grappling with escalating inflation. But despite the new notes starting to circulate late last month, acute change shortages and scarcity have remained. It is the third currency to be introduced in Zimbabwe within the past decade. At least 44 cholera cases have been reported in the country in the wake of the floods. The flooding have affected more than 250,000 people, with 238 deaths reported across the country. Tana River is one of the most affected counties by the flooding. Meanwhile, Kenya's Health Principal Secretary, Mary Muthoni, said there was grave danger of waterborne diseases becoming a disaster if not addressed in time. Ms. Muthoni spoke as she and other health officials distributed water purification products in the capital, Nairobi. She also pointed out the risk of diseases from food contamination and unsafe food sources that was being made worse by the floods. The WHO says it will continue to support the government's emergency response and remain vigilant for disease outbreaks that could easily spread if not quickly contained. It has also procured around 87 cholera, 58 interagency, and 20 pneumonia kits that are being distributed to key counties and can treat around 10,000 people.
From the foreign scene and welcome back home, let's join our business news desk for happenings in the business sector.
The Naira has remained weak at official foreign exchange despite a nearly 90% of dollar supply by commercial banks and other market operators. The summary of the FX trading released by the FMDQ Security Exchange Limited showed that the Naira depreciated by 4.40% as the dollar was quoted at 1,416 Naira.57 kobo yesterday, weaker than 1,354 Naira 21 kobo quoted on Monday at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Markets, NAFEM. At the parallel market, also known as black market, the Naira also remained volatile following shortage of dollar and increased demand. The United Bank for Africa PLC UBA has achieved a 110% year-on-year rise in gross earnings to 570.2 billion naira in the first quarter of 2024, as against 271.1 billion naira recorded in the same period in 2023. Commenting on the results, UBA Group's Managing Director Oliver Alawaba said the group delivered strong first quarter performance, building on the solid momentum of 2023, as well as the ongoing execution of its long-held strategy of customer-focused geographic diversification and effective risk management and governance.
Interested applicants, particularly Deltans, have been informed that they can apply free of charge at the Nigerian Army's recruitment website for the ongoing 87th regular recruitment for trades and non-tradesmen and women. The exercise, which began last week, will end on the 7th of June. A statement signed by the functioning Permanent Secretary and Director of Public Communication in the State Ministry of Information, Mrs. Teresa Oliko, says applicants are expected to be single, Nigerian citizens by birth, and must possess a national identity number (NIN), valid age declaration or birth certificate endorsed by the National Population Commission, and must be between the age of 18 and 22 for non-tradesmen and women, and not more than 26 years for tradesmen and women, with specific height of not less than 1.68 meters for males and 1.65 meters for females. According to the statement, applicants are expected to be medically, physically, and psychologically fit in accordance with the Nigerian Army standard and must possess a minimum of 4 passes and not more than 2 sittings in WASC, GCE, NECO, NAPTEB, an ordinary level school certificate for non-tradesmen and women, while tradesmen and women candidates must possess trade test and city and guild certificates as additional qualifications. Shortlisted candidates will undergo physical exercise from Thursday, June 20 to Wednesday, July 3, commencing at 7 a.m. daily at the Cenotaph Complex on the High Court Road, GRA, Asaba. And now sports news. The Olympic flame reached the port of Marseille, France's oldest city, amid tight security today, 79 days before the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Games. The ship was awaited by 1,024 boats. Around 6,000 law enforcement officers are securing the area before Florence Manodou, France's 2012 Olympic men's 50 meters freestyle swimming champion, brings the flame to land shortly after 5:30 p.m. Greenwich Meridian time, in the presence of President Emmanuel Macron. Police canine units and elite forces snipers have also been deployed in an unprecedented level of security. The event is the 5th of the Paris 2024 Olympics and Paralympic ceremonies, including the opening and closing ceremonies. The relay will start tomorrow with former Olympique de Marseille soccer players Jean-Pierre Papin, Didier Drogba, and Basiboli, as well as three-star chef Alexandre Mazia among the torchbearers. More than 10,000 people will take part in the torch relay before the flame reaches Paris and is installed near the Louvre in the Jardin des Tuileries. The Olympic opening ceremony will take place on the River Seine on July 26. More than 150,000 people are expected to attend the ceremony after a 6-hour parade of the 3-masted Millennium, which left Greece on April 27 with the flame after it was ancient Olympia 7 days earlier. A thought for the day. If you want to conquer fear, don't sit at home and think about it. Go out and get busy. Before we go, our highlights. The state government has taken delivery of 19,500 bags of 50 kilograms of maize and 4,700 bags of 25 kilograms of gari, courtesy of the federal government. The gesture was aimed at cushioning the impact of the current economic downturn in line with the renewed hope initiatives of the administration. The Nigerian Army has withdrawn its officers and men from Okwama community in Uyeli South local government area of the state after weeks of occupying the troubled community. Governor Sheriff Obrewori disclosed this at a press briefing in Government House, Asaba. As reactions continue to trail the recently introduced cybersecurity levy introduced by the federal government through the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, the Trade Union Congress, TUC, has threatened a massive protest that will shut down the Nigerian economy should the federal government fail to reverse the controversial levy. And abroad, Zimbabwe's Finance Minister Mthuli Nobe has ordered all government agencies to accept payments in the newly introduced gold-backed currency amid reports of acute shortage. That's our news on Delta Television. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Pauline Okoli. Good night.